It Takes Two, Amy Eiler, JJ Gordon here on the Mighty 790 KFGO. There's been a lot of headlines on Apple Watches lately, and there are plenty of people that we're talking to right now who have one on their wrist and kind of rely. I know you're not a watch person.
No, but
You're not an
my
Apple
wife
Watch.
loves her Apple Watch.
I love my Apple Watch too. What would I do without it?
Well, some people may be finding that out.
Yeah, exactly. Ian Scher is with us now, CBS tech contributor, to talk all about the Apple Watch. Ian, welcome back to KFGO Radio.
How you doing?
We're doing pretty well, except for I'm a little attached to my Apple Watch, and I don't want any of its features to go away, and I don't want it to go away.
Yes. Well, fortunately for you, if you own one and it's on your wrist or at home, then you're not going to be affected by any of this news. But for people who are looking to buy a new Apple Watch, they very likely are going to be buying one with one less feature in it, which is that it will no longer be able to track blood oxygen sensing, which was a very interesting feature, right? Typically, it's something that when you go to the doctor, they put that little thing on your finger that tells them how much oxygen is in your blood. Well, Apple developed something for the watch, and now apparently it went against a couple of patents. Apple lost a trial, and now they have to take it out of the watches that they sell new.
I actually do think, is that the VO2
Yeah.
reading? I actually really like that reading on my health data.
Yeah. So this is what's interesting is that the company that sued Apple, its name is Masimo, they developed the little things that go on your fingers at the hospital, and they say that Apple hired away some of their staff and stole essentially company secrets to be able to build it into the Apple Watch, and they convinced the court to agree with them. Apple's still fighting and appealing this whole thing, but for now, they are not allowed to sell any new Apple Watches with this feature, and instead either have to pay a licensing fee to Masimo, which they don't want to do, or disable it in any new watches that they're selling starting essentially tonight.
I have been sort of obsessed with this reading in particular because I noted the first time that I had COVID, my VO2 max readings dramatically were affected. And I've only seen in the last probably 2 to 3 months, it kind of inched back. It never came back from the first time I had COVID. And then the second time I had COVID, I watched them drop significantly. And now I've finally been seeing a tick up, and I'm sort of obsessed with that reading on my Apple Watch, to be honest. It doesn't seem like a big deal. It doesn't seem like a big feature, but I think for some of us especially that like to track our workouts on our watch, that's an interesting reading.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's part of why Apple included it in the first place. Part of what's going to be very interesting about this is how Apple moves forward, right? So far, they've lost a couple of rounds in legal battles. And the White House, at one point, President Biden had an option to overrule the whole thing and allow Apple Watches to continue being sold, even though they violated this patent. He decided not to do that and instead allowed the ban to go into effect. And so it's actually very interesting because Apple, even though they've been in a lot of legal disputes over the years, right, with Samsung, Nokia, I mean, you name them, Microsoft, they have not really ever suffered something like this, where suddenly their products are banned from being sold unless they're changed.
Ian, let me ask you this. What about other app developers' confidence in a company Apple, where all of a sudden you find out that, well, okay, so they did some things that were not so honest, and a company is right now winning against them. It doesn't make me want to all of a sudden start doing business with Apple, knowing that they might steal some of my proprietary information.
Well, so I will say that, it doesn't help very much, but pretty much every company I've ever talked to in nearly 2 decades of covering the tech industry, not a single one of them I know of has not been in a patent lawsuit at one point or another.
Oh, really?
This unfortunately is very, very, very common. And part of it is because a lot of the people who work in these companies move around, right? So one will go to the other, and sometimes if the person who left didn't leave on the best of terms, or there's a sour taste in their mouth, suddenly lawsuits start up. So that's one thing. The other thing also is, yes, I mean, there is a lot of criticism that is very valid to be said about how Apple does business. And whether or not you're comfortable with that is part of the whole thing, right? Like if you're buying an Apple device, you're not just buying something with a cute, half-eaten apple on the back of it. You are also part of the ecosystem. And in a lot of ways, as the company has said yourself, they believe that when you buy their products, you're voting with your wallet, right? You are telling them that you like the way they do things. So, you may have that feeling you don't want to work with them, and I can understand that.
Okay, so what is it going to take for Apple to, I mean, I guess, they're a pretty valuable company, to buy out Massimo to bring it back? Or are we just talking about pretty much a blip in this, and they'll end up developing to bring this feature back to iPhones, do you think?
Apple Watch is not iPhones. My guess is that this will be more of a blip than anything, but it is a good reminder that even a company that pretty much nobody had heard about until they sued Apple can really, like, when the patents are on their side, right? And they did develop this technology first, and the patent system so far has said they deserve royalties for their work, right? I mean, part of the reason that this is happening is that Apple has not been able to come to an agreement with this company to license the technology from them. So there's a lot of elements to this that I'm curious to see how it'll land. But in 5 years, I think most people will be struggling to even remember this happened.
Yeah, good point. We have a question in at 35270, which is our Adventure RV Text Club. Someone says, I have a Series 3. I got a 9 for Christmas. Is this the watch that they're talking about, do you think?
Yes, so this affects the Series 9 and the Ultra 2, right?
Okay.
So the ones that were released this year, or rather, last year. It's just in the fall.
Right.
I'm still getting used to it being 2024. And so yes.
This person
Apple's
says...
not going to...
Oh, go ahead.
Well, it's not... Apple's not going to reach in and take the feature away from you, right? This is only about if you buy a new one starting tonight and forward, then it will likely not have that feature turned on. But for those of it, like I have an Apple Watch from last year as well, it's going to work no matter what. Like I'll still have it, and just same with you. Your data and your health app will continue going.
This person says, so I have a Series 3. I got a 9 for Christmas. Not sure yet if I want to keep the 9, as it sounds like battery won't last longer as the 9 runs more stuff I likely won't use, thus using more battery. True or false? Also, I don't see the VStat O2 info on mine. Please advise. Okay, so do you advise, like, if they're not someone who's using all of these features, do they need the 9, or is there something better?
It depends on who you are, right? Part of it really depends on who you are. And a lot of it comes down to, first off, all technology gets upgraded and changed over the years, right? And you can hold on to it for a long time. The Series 3, I think, came out, probably 7-8 years ago now. And, it's a great watch, but it's not able to run the most recent software. It doesn't have all those features that had, like, the fall detection and whatever else that Apple's built in the meantime, not to mention the always-on screen. So if you are worried about battery life, you can actually reduce what the watch does. You can turn off a lot of those features. And then also, you could also choose to return it and get something like the Apple Watch SE, which is their lowest cost Apple Watch that has a lot of the features and the latest software, but, is not as expensive and doesn't have the VO2 thing.
Okay, interesting. Ian Sherr with us, CBS Tech contributor. Thanks so much for joining us on KFGO and giving us an update on this Apple Watch drama.
Absolutely. Anytime.
Thanks.